Well, Stephanie also happens to be related to our family, so we're distant cousins, way back, don't ask me how many times removed, but she was the best sustainability director in the country, in the world, until she relinquished that job and became the chief resiliency officer, and she's going to come up here and tell you all about the commitment that the mayor has to this effort and many of the wonderful things that they have planned and are executing upon. Stephanie?
Thanks, Cousin Laura, and to the entire Turner and Seidel family. Let me see how to, can someone show me how to move this? Okay. I'm going to keep my remarks brief because I'm mindful that I'm what's keeping you to your lunch. But I first have to give a shout out to Vice President Al Gore, who inspired me as a freshman at Vanderbilt University to become an environmentalist when he came and spoke to our Young Democrats chapter. And I actually have a photo of that event, which I almost put in my slide presentation, except I have really bad 1980s hair, so I'm going to spare y'all that image. Now on to my prepared remarks. It's an honor to address you all on behalf of Mayor Kasim Reed and also the Rockefeller Foundation and my role as the Chief Resilience Officer for the City of Atlanta as part of the 100 Resilient Cities program. I have a funny story about me being named the Chief Resilience Officer. I called my father to give him the news, and he's a little hard of hearing, and he thought that I said I'm the Chief Resistance Officer. But given the political times that we're in now, I'm thinking Chief Resistance Officer might be a very applicable term for my new role. How many of y'all are familiar with the 100 Resilient Cities program with Rockefeller? I figured with this crowd, there'd be a lot of people who know about the program. I'll give you a real short synopsis and then go on to Atlanta's role. In 2013, the Rockefeller Foundation decided to celebrate their 100th anniversary in a big, bodacious way. And they recognized three major trends: climate change, of course, globalization, and urbanization. And they recognized, as this slide shows, that 70% of the world's population is going to be clustered in cities by 2050. And so Rockefeller rightfully decided that cities are where the action is in facing the impacts of climate change. And as Sir Dr. Haynes said, the future planetary health will depend on cities. So Rockefeller has invested $100 million in 100 incredibly special cities like Atlanta and also like Nashville, Mr. Vice President Gore, to serve as powerful incubators for action to address extreme weather, health, sociological, and other impacts of climate change. And these are, I'm not sure how good this map looks, but this just shows that it is a global program. It spans 6 continents, and many of the cities that have been discussed today in the presentations are part of the 100 RC Club, as we like to call it. And this is the definition of urban resilience. I'll let you all read it yourselves, but more and more we're hearing that resilience is part of the modern lexicon and how we talk about climate change. This slide is important because it shows how health and well-being is a core tenet of how cities and the 100 RC Club are developing their resilience strategies. Rockefeller focuses largely on infrastructure, not just bricks and mortar, but human resilience, how we design our buildings, our parks and public spaces to foster social cohesion and protect health and well-being, which very much gets to the health impacts of how we plan for the future growth of cities. I'm going to conclude my remarks, like Vice President Al Gore and others, on a hopeful note, since as Mayor Reed likes to say, cities are where hope meets the streets. So I'm going to leave you with a few concrete examples, building on what Laura Turner Seidel said, of what we're doing here in Atlanta to make our city more resilient to the health impacts of climate change, and hopefully serve as a model to other cities. We are the first city in Georgia to pass a climate action plan, and Dr. Jairo Garcia, who's the author of that plan, is here today. And we are now working with Emory's Public Health School, the Rollins School, and I think Daniel Roshberg is here. We're working with him to revise that plan and other scientists at Emory to make sure that we are infusing public health throughout our plan. As Laura mentioned, Kasim Reed and I attended the COP21 Paris climate talks. We were one of the few cities in the Deep South to participate in those talks as part of the Compact of Mayors. And then I'm really excited because this just happened yesterday afternoon. Mayor Reed announced a $4.5 million investment to improve the Proctor Creek watershed. And that's an area, a low-income minority area of town that is plagued by flooding. We have combined sewer overflows, and also we're facing a lot of diseases related to that flooding. That's one of the few areas in town where we've actually seen West Nile disease. $3 million of those funds are going to be towards building a greenway trail along Proctor Creek. It's going to be a 7-mile trail that will provide much needed green space, walking and bicycling. And it also connects to our public transit and to our Beltline. And $1.5 million of that's going to be invested in a study that we're collaborating on. It's a $3 million study total with the U.S. Corps of Engineers to improve the water quality and ecological habitat of that watershed. Atlanta also has the largest EV fleet of any city in the Southeast. And in the past year, this has all happened in a year, we've gone from 0 cars to 68 electric cars in our fleet. Our police department in particular are very proud to be driving PO-LEAF vehicles. Finally, Atlanta is a leader in the urban agriculture movement to tackle problems of food deserts where there's a lack of access to fresh, local, healthy produce. And in fact, I'll give a shameless plug. This weekend, we're hosting a national conference focusing on indoor agriculture and aquaponics to help ensure that we can grow food even in an environment that's often plagued by drought and excessive heat. And I just want to stress, and Laura said this as well, all of this is happening in the Deep South. This is not Seattle, this is not Portland, this is not Berkeley. Yet, with the power of local leadership like Kasim Reed, you can make change happen no matter what your political climate is. Can I also, since we're talking about politics, I mentioned politics, my background, I served in the Georgia legislature for 14 years, so I very much come from a policy background. And we have a real leader here, I hope he's still here, former Congressman Buddy Darden, who's been such a friend of the environment. I just have to give you a shout out. And last, I just have to say that Atlanta is also focusing on equity. We're really proud to be the birthplace of the civil rights movement, the birthplace of Martin Luther King, and of course, the home of the Carter Center. We're a city that really celebrates our diversity and being inclusive of all populations, especially when we're looking at the nexus of climate change and public health and how that impacts low-income minority communities. And I think that Dr. Marshall Shepard is here, and he is such a leader on equity and climate change. So thank you, Dr. Shepard, for your leadership. So with that, I'm going to thank you for your time and look forward to the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much, Stephanie Stuckey. A very dynamic presentation and very exciting what you and the mayor and your team are doing here. Mayor Reed was invited to join us, but he was already obligated elsewhere. But thank you very much